Clara had 72 hours before the journey that would erase her existence, and she had no plan except to survive. They moved her to a different location on the 8th day, keeping her blindfolded throughout the drive. When they finally removed the cloth from her eyes, she found herself in a small boys' quarters behind what looked like an abandoned house. The security was lighter here with only 2 guards who rotated shifts every 12 hours. They gave her more food now because Gloria wanted her looking healthy for the journey. The girls were being shipped out through the ports in the south, hidden in cargo containers with other trafficked women heading to Libya. Sick or malnourished girls drew unwanted attention from Gloria's contacts on the other side, who paid good money for healthy workers. Clara watched the guards carefully during those 3 days. The older one was strict and never let his attention wander, but the younger one got careless on his night shifts. He scrolled through his phone for hours and sometimes dozed off around 3 in the morning. On the second night, Clara noticed he had left the bathroom window slightly open to let out smoke from his cigarettes. It was small, but Clara was slim enough to fit through if she could reach it. The night before her flight, Clara waited until she heard the young guard's breathing become heavy and regular. Her hands shook as she pushed the bathroom window wider, trying not to make any sound. The metal frame creaked once and she froze completely, but the guard didn't stare. She pulled herself up and squeezed through the narrow opening, scraping her arms and legs on the rough edges. The drop to the ground was higher than she expected and she landed hard on her ankle, but swallowed the cry of pain that tried to escape. She ran without knowing where she was going, limping on her injured ankle through dark streets that all looked the same. Behind her, she heard shouting as the guards discovered her escape. Car engines roared to life and headlights swept across the roads. Clara ducked into a market that had just closed, crawling under tables and hiding behind stacks of empty crates. The guards' voices came closer and she pressed herself against the ground, not breathing, not moving, praying they wouldn't find her. Hours passed before she dared to move again. Dawn was breaking when she finally crawled out from her hiding place. The market traders were beginning to arrive, and she must have looked terrible, because an older woman selling clothes immediately asked if she was all right. Clara broke down and begged the woman to help her call her parents. The woman took her inside her shop and let her use a phone while giving her water and bread. Her father answered on the first ring, his voice hoarse from days of no sleep. Clara could barely speak through her tears, but managed to tell him she was alive and gave him the woman's address. Her parents arrived 7 hours later, having asked for directions multiple times to find the address Clara had given them. Clara's mother couldn't stop crying and holding her while her father kept thanking the woman who had helped his daughter. They wanted to take Clara straight to the nearest police station to report everything, but the moment her father mentioned police, Clara grabbed his arm with such terror that he stopped mid-sentence. She begged them not to go to any station, not to file reports, not to involve any authorities. She made them understand that Gloria was too powerful and too connected. Going after her would only get Clara killed, and possibly her family too. Her parents tried to reason with her, saying they needed to get justice and stop this woman from hurting others. But Clara became hysterical at the suggestion. Her father finally saw the genuine fear in his daughter's eyes and agreed to take her home immediately without involving anyone. The journey back to the village was silent. Clara stared out the window at the passing landscape and realized she was leaving behind everything she had worked for. Her university dreams were over. She couldn't go back to that campus, couldn't risk being seen by Gloria's people, couldn't take the chance that they might finish what they started. At home, Clara refused to leave the house for months. She jumped at every knock on the door and couldn't sleep without checking the windows multiple times. Her parents tried to convince her to report Gloria, to let the authorities handle it, but Clara would become hysterical at the mere suggestion. She made them promise on everything they held sacred that they would never ever contact the police about this. Her mother cried every night seeing her daughter so broken and afraid, but Clara insisted that staying silent was the only way to stay alive. She eventually started seeing a counselor her mother found in the next town. The nightmares came every night, showing her that warehouse and Gloria's calm. She enrolled in a computer training center and learned basic skills to keep her mind occupied. After 8 months, she got a job as a sales girl in a small phone accessories shop owned by her father's friend. It wasn't the graduate life she had imagined, but it was safe, and Gloria couldn't reach her here. Clara never heard from Samantha or Rejoice again. They never called, never visited, never even sent a message to ask if she was alive. As far as Clara knew, they were still going to parties, dating married men, and collecting their bundles of cash. They had probably replaced her with another roommate and forgotten she ever existed. Sometimes Clara wondered if they even remembered the girl they used to call Holy Mary, or if they ever thought about where she had disappeared to for those terrifying days. But she knew the answer. Girls like Samantha and Rejoice never looked back and never learned until it was their turn to face the consequences. 2 years later, Clara had learned to function again, though the fear never completely left. She helped her mother with the farming and worked at the shop during market days. It wasn't the life she had planned, but she was alive, and that was more than some girls could say. Sometimes, she saw posts on social media showing Felix still living lavishly with Gloria by his side at social events. They looked perfect together, a power couple that everyone admired. Nobody knew what Gloria did to protect her marriage, and nobody would believe it if they were told. Clara had tried to warn a few young girls in her area when she heard them talking about dating older men in the city, but they looked at her like she was just a bitter person who couldn't handle competition. The lesson Clara learned was simple, but it had cost her everything to understand it. Some mistakes don't give you a second chance, and some people are more dangerous than they appear. Money and gifts always come with a price, and by the time you realize you were wrong, it's often too late to fix it. Clara survived, but survival isn't the same as living. She would never finish university, never become the educated woman she had dreamed of being, never feel completely safe again. The story ended with Clara alive but diminished, free but forever looking over her shoulder.